So here I am out in the woods and it's a gentle afternoon ride. I'm really lucky to have this beautiful place right on the doorstep. So if I don't want to go for a longer ride, I can just go for a gentle bimble along. And there's some great little tracks, and you can, you know, like when you're a kid, you can do jumps and splash through puddles and so on and so forth, or you can go on the smoother paths. Anyone that's been with me on the North Thailand tour or the Thailand gravel tour will be familiar with these woods. We do it at the beginning of the tour. It's beautiful. It's mostly rubber trees, and there's some rubber farmers about sometimes tending their trees. They're a friendly old bunch. But I didn't want to talk about that today. What I wanted to talk about today is what brakes you should put on your machine if you're building a bikepacking bike or a bike to take on holiday with you, like a wonderful painted roads Asian cycling extravaganza. Now, there's a lot of talk on this topic on the internet, on forums and so on and so forth, and there's a lot of talk about a place called overseas. And apparently when you go to overseas, wherever that may be, you can't get anything. You can't get anything. Most things you can only get in the good old US of A, seems to be the story. Well, wherever overseas is, I've never been there, because wherever I've been, there's always been bicycle shops. And if there's bicycle shops, you can get stuff. Normally, Shimano's your safe bet, as discussed in the previous video. I reckon it was about 15 years ago that I first fitted hydraulic disc brakes to my adventure bike, and my travelling companion Sebastian and I, we were off to the Andes, and I'd fitted the brakes just before we went, and my fault completely, schoolboy error. I'd not put them together properly, so the olive had got pinched up, and there was a little bit of a leak, brake leak, and this was right in the north of Colombia. And I thought, oh, I need to get a new olive. Where am I going to find one of those? First town we went to, we asked shoppy bicicleta. Really good Spanish. And anyway, quickly found a bicycle shop, went in and said, do you have an olive? And he gave us an olive and fixed it. Really, no problem. Anyway, back on the bike. This isn't going to get me home for 4.28 and a beer, is it? So the main thing is you've got mechanical brakes and you've got hydraulic brakes. Now, people say you've got to have mechanical brakes because it's simple, it's easy to maintain, you can fix it anywhere. I think I could argue that the opposite is true. With maintenance with mechanical, as the pads wear down, you have to keep adjusting the adjustment screw or the cable barrel to keep taking up the slack. As the pads wear down, there becomes a bigger and bigger gap between the pad and the disc. That is automatic on hydraulic disc brakes. You've also got the possibility of a brake cable breaking, so you'd have to carry a spare cable. No big deal, I always have a spare gear cable, and in the days of cable brakes I had spare brake cable as well, just poked into my handlebars. There's a handy hint for you. Put your spare cables in your handlebars. You can also put your spare spokes up your seat tube. But we're on to a different topic now, back to the brakes. You can also get grit and nasty stuff gets on the cable. That gets pulled up inside the sheathing of the mechanical cable system and can cause a sticky brake. So they're immediately maintenance problems you have to deal with on cable brakes that you don't on hydraulic. Hydraulic brakes, they just work. People say, well, what if you have to bleed them? Well, if you've got Shimano brakes, it might not be a bad idea to carry a little bottle of Shimano mineral oil and a little Shimano bleed funnel with you. Not a problem, doesn't weigh much, takes up no more room really than carrying other spare bits for mechanical brakes. Very often, if you do have any trouble with a little bit of air in your system, you can use a technique called burping, which you can burp in Shimano hydraulic brakes, put it into YouTube, and you'll quickly find examples of how to do it. Very simple, anyone can do it, and that will 99% of the time solve any problem you've got. When you've got rim brakes, of course, you've got an aluminium rim and that aluminium rim is going to wear out. And indeed on one northeast Vietnam tour, super tour, if you really fancy going somewhere beautiful, come to northeast Vietnam with paintedroads.com. Anyway, back to the brakes. So we've been doing this northeast Vietnam tour, and there, back in the early days, there was an off-road section with a great big long downhill. And the first time we ran the tour, it was very wet, gritty, sandy sort of mud. And during this descent, half of the bikes wore right through the rim on one of the wheels. And we had to have new wheels sent up from Hanoi overnight. And when you change the pads, I mean, changing the pads on disc brakes, you just undo the screw that holds the pads in, pull out the pads, put your new pads in, put it all back together. Whoa dear. Job's a good one, Bob's your uncle. So, that's my thoughts on it. Well, let me know what you think. Before I go, I'd like to mention the fact that hopefully this very silly virus is on the way out, and I'm hoping that by next year we're going to be able to resume running tours. So if you do fancy coming over to Asia to ride your bicycle, go on to www.paintedroads.com and have a look at the tours we've got on offer. I lead all of the tours along with my in-country partners. So if you've got any questions whatsoever about any of the tours, contact me through the website and I will be right back to you, if not immediately, within 24 hours. How's that? Right, I'm coming to another boggy bit, so I better shut up and get on with what I'm doing. Oh dear. Cheerio!